this district pretty well. I feel you have to have a background to do a good job. I've raised a family of 5 kids, started 2 businesses from scratch. One's a farm, one's a veterinary clinic. So I've got a little idea of what it's like to meet a payroll and live, I think, with the consequences of the decisions we make in Washington, D.C., and I think that's important to have that perspective. Came to public service a little later in life, served in the legislature for a few years, Congress here just this past 10 years. Frankly, I've been pretty effective and feel that I share your values. I'm very interested in shared prosperity. That means that rural Oregon does as well as Portland. You know, I've been active in the Farm Bill, active in forestry, trying to make sure our fisheries are not over-regulated, but get a chance to earn a good living off the land, like I've been able to do. I believe in the opportunities for folks. That means education in a big way. Pell Grant increases in special ed, making sure that we have career and technical education. That was a big victory, getting a bill I sponsored through the United States Congress to give people, young and old, that are maybe not four-year college-oriented, a chance for a great family wage job. It means healthcare, access to healthcare. Proud to support the Affordable Care Act, and prouder yet to even support fixes to the Affordable Care Act. The individual marketplace is having big problems with premium increases and deductibles, and we've been working very hard on that. And I have an opportunity to actually fix that. I've got the only bipartisan bill in the United States Congress to make healthcare affordable for everybody. And I think perhaps most importantly, I have been the most bipartisan legislator from Oregon and one of the most bipartisan in the United States. I feel it's important to work across the aisle. I don't represent just one party. I represent you guys, the 5th Congressional District. That's my job. And I take that very, very seriously. Washington Post said us one of the 10 most effective members of the United States House. Thank you very much for having us here today.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Callahan. I'm running for Congress in Oregon's 5th Congressional District. People ask me all the time, why are you out there on the campaign trail, Mark? Why are you out there eating the fast food, traveling all over the district, putting miles on the car? Why am I out there doing it? I tell them one thing. It's about one thing to me. That one thing is love. It's love. It's love of country. It's love of family. It's love to get off the couch, stop watching TV and complaining, and actually get out there and do something about it. 41 years old myself, have a couple of teenage daughters, Heather and Sarah, 14 and 15 years old. They've gone with me on the campaign trail in the past. One passes out literature, the other one runs the video camera. But I teach them about civics when I'm out up here talking in front of a group of people, because I love them. I love my daughters. My daughters love me. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to represent everyone, regardless of party, regardless of social division. I am a Republican, yes, but I'm here to represent Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, non-affiliate, even Greens. I'm here to represent everyone because that is my job when I get back there to Congress, and that's what I pledge to do. I'm an Eagle Scout myself. I graduated from Oregon State University. I believe in things like honor, integrity, and character. I actually worked in the senior center when I was at Oregon State University myself. I helped out with the activity program. One of my favorite activities was going over there to Depot Bay for the Depot Bay Salmon Bay. I really love that salmon that was cooked on those spits. I don't know if you guys have ever been over there. But I really like working with seniors. I really like working with folks from the community. No matter what their political background is, no matter what their diverse background was, I am here to represent everyone with an open door policy. I want to go back there to Washington, D.C., look people straight in the eye, tell the truth, be genuine, because that's who I am, and that's what I plan on doing when I get back there. Working for you. This race is not about me. It's not about the candidate. It's about working for the constituents of Oregon's 5th Congressional District, and that's what I plan on doing when I get back there to Washington, D.C. My name is Mark Callahan. I'm running for Congress in Oregon's 5th Congressional District. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you. May God bless America.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Marvin Sandnes. I was born in Selwood, raised in Mount Angel. I graduated from Portland State with a bachelor's degree. I want to tell, last week we started our 18th year at war with the planet's 5th poorest country. We're wasting our resources and our children fighting this war. I want to tell us a history story.
Put the microphone close to your mouth.
Okay, thank you. 2 days after Japan surrendered, Fletcher Prouty was standing with the port commander on Okinawa. Okinawa was 4 square miles, piled 20 feet high with war material for the invasion of Japan. Fletcher asked the port commander, "What are you going to do with all this material?" And he says, "We just got the orders this morning. Half of this stuff is going to Seoul, Korea. The other half of this stuff is going to Hanoi, Vietnam." And Fletcher said, "What the heck? Why is this stuff going to those 2 places?" He says, "I have no idea, but we're going to start loading the ships this afternoon." Now, the second story I'll tell, and this Fletcher Prouty has a book called Secret Team, and these stories are in the introduction to his book, JFK. In 1954, 1955, the U.S. Navy and Air America, which was the CIA's Air Force in Southeast Asia, they moved 1 million North Vietnamese Catholics into Buddhist South Vietnam. The largest human migration in history, 1954, 1955. 10 years later, the Marines landed at Da Nang and the Army Rangers at Cam Ranh Bay. Now, the next story I'll tell is my neighbor was one of those Army Rangers that landed at Cam Ranh Bay. And he said within 2 weeks, we controlled every village, hamlet, city, bridge, creek, river in Vietnam within 50 miles of where we landed. Nobody told our commanders that this was to be several years and a helicopter war. We were ordered back to Cam Ranh Bay and we sat on our hands. So the same thing is happening now. Why are we in Afghanistan for 18 years? The 5th poorest country on the planet. I want to show you this. This is the 93% of the planet's opium is grown in Afghanistan. This is a resource war. Just like every war, this is a resource war. Thank you.
Terrific. Let's give the candidates a round of applause and then move to questions if we have any. We started a few minutes late, so we probably have time for 2. I'm guessing.
All the questions.
Oh, terrific.
I think we have them, no,
Great.
but I think we're just, you know.
Microphone.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I need to turn it on. There we go. There we go. At this point, I have 3 questions for Representative Schrader and 1 for Mr. Callahan. Does anybody else have any more questions? If you do, would you please complete them and raise your hand so we can get those? Representative Schrader, first question here is, would you consider returning the NRA contribution?
That was from, I think, 6 years ago, so probably no at this point in time. We have not taken any NRA contributions since the Parkland shooting and since the debacle of that, frankly, organization at this point in time.
Thank you. The next question I have also for Representative Schrader is, our democracy is threatened by Trump and his Republican enablers. What will you do to fight back?
Well, not everyone in this district would agree with that, to be very honest with you. And as I said at the outset, I'd like to represent the district as a whole. My philosophy is there are areas where I'll work with the president if it's good for our district. That might be in business regulation areas. I will work against him when he's discriminating against people trying to get to this country, working against public education, frankly not worrying about the debt and deficit legacy that unfortunately that recent tax bill is going to leave our children. I think that's a travesty. So like anybody, you try and work with people when you can, and when you disagree, you don't. And I'm not a big fan of him personally, but he is the President of the United States, and I give him that respect.
The next 2 questions are similar, so Well, let me read each one. Are you for Medicare for all?
I'm for universal health care access. I mean, that was the goal of the Affordable Care Act, to make sure that everyone had affordable access to health care. Frankly, I think there's been a lot of misinformation about how successful it has been or has not. It's not perfect, but it has given health care to millions of Americans that could no longer get health care or couldn't afford it in the first place. 25% of Oregonians are on the the Oregon Health Plan. The Affordable Care Act problem area is the individual marketplace, constituting maybe less than 10% of the population. Medicare is working well, the employer-based health care is working very well. We need to fix that one spot, and I think that's where we should focus our attention. If we can get that under control by having a reinsurance program, giving states a little more flexibility, dealing with the cost-sharing program, we could make a huge inroad in dropping those premiums into much more affordable ranges and reducing the deductibles. A lot of those folks that don't have jobs are struggling to get health care. And I've got bipartisan support for that exact legislation, both on the House side and on the Senate side.
This question is related, but you may have more comments. The cost of health care insurance is too high. How can we reduce it?
Well, again, the biggest problem that we're facing is that when the Affordable Care Act was instituted in that individual marketplace, it was thought, well, geez, there's going to be a lot of people, young people, for the first time, they're going to be able to access health care. They get on the parents' plan, the parents will cover them until age 26, they get a job, they'll have all sorts of opportunities, and that hasn't come about. So as a result, that individual marketplace is skewed with higher aged people, seniors not yet eligible for Medicare, or in other words, younger than 65, but have serious health problems. And as a result, that marketplace has been very expensive to run. And to take care of them, in addition to every one of us that's not already on Medicare and trying to get health care under the Affordable Care Act, has caused our premiums to escalate. So the trick is to take care of that population by instituting a reinsurance program. The state of Oregon has kept the increases this year into single digits. If we did that on a national basis, we could replicate that nationally and partner with Oregon to drive the cost down even more over the long haul. The state waivers that we've got for our health care plan, the Oregon Health Plan, we can do a lot more under my bill to do the same thing in the Affordable Care Act, making sure that everyone gets the right preventative services, everyone gets essential health benefits so they're not getting scammed by the fine print by an insurance company, and yet it's affordable for them when they apply and need it for their families. Don't have to make that choice between food and health care.
Finally, this questioner says, I fill in your online comment cards and ask for a response. I never receive a position paper on your views. What can I, as a constituent, do to change this? Thank you.
Sure. Well, that's unusual. We pride ourselves on our constituent service, and I'd be glad to have Shane, who's right in the back there with the knapsack. Please ask him. We get your response very easily. Our office is in Oregon City and in Salem, so it's pretty accessible. And pride ourselves on helping folks. We've returned over $5.5 million to folks in the 5th Congressional District that were getting stuck, not getting their Social Security benefits, not getting their Medicare benefits, veterans that couldn't get their benefits, or folks who are getting overcharged by the IRS. So we pride ourselves on that. Occasionally things slip through the cracks, and I apologize for that. We'll take care of it.
Thank you very much. This question is for Mr. Callahan. Do you support President Trump?
I do. I know that this may not be the room to say that in, but I do support President Trump. I actually had a really great inspirational experience. I went to President Trump's nominating convention in Cleveland, as well as his inauguration in Washington, D.C. There was millions of people on the mall that day, despite what the mainstream media said, but there was millions of people there, and I do support President Trump. I'm going back there to Congress to be an ally to President Trump, because I think he's a great person. I think that he has his heart in the right place, and I want to help him out. That's what I want to do. Thank you.
We have not had that situation before.
The bombing is 1/3 under Trump that it was under the last 3 years of Obama. 1/3. I support that part of his bombing, yeah. The bombing in the Middle East. 1/3 of what it was the last 3 years under Obama.
Okay. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Appreciate it very much.
Let's give them a round of applause. All right, next I'd like to invite to the stage our candidates for Oregon governor. I don't know if we do have everybody here, or if we have some folks on their behalf. Aaron Auer, Governor Kate Brown, Newt Bueller, Alex de Blasi, and Patrick Starnes. You may check in with our organizer and see if we have somebody else. Do we have somebody here on the Mueller and Brown campaign? Just okay. So it sounds like Governor Brown may have met with some of you already last week when she was here. Mr. Bueller is not going to be here this evening, so we'll get started. Gentlemen, you have about 3 minutes. Mike Litz in front of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about you before we get into questions.
Hello, my name is Patrick Starnes. I'm the independent candidate for governor, and I'm going to skip my bio because it's right in your chair. Just briefly, I was raised around Roseburg, outside of Roseburg in the country, and my father was a mill worker, and I've been a cabinet maker for over 30 years. And what really got me into the